The caste discrimination that happens in India, in the villages, in the rural areas, is very violent. There would be rape, there will be name calling, there will be abuses, there will be physical violence, murders, beatings. In the corporate sector, it doesn't happen like this. In the corporate sector, when you are called for an interview, if you get a referral in a company, I'll come to that in a moment. If you get an interview, the guys will try to kind of be nice, they will try to kind of find out your caste. And the caste is not very well hidden, all said and done, right? It's there in the name, or oh, where are you from, which region. In fact, there are some algorithms in Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, etc. If given your full name and the state that you come from, the algorithm can find out your caste with around 95% accuracy. Thank you for the very nice introduction. I am also a spokesperson for Ambedkar International Center based in the USA. I don't know, some of you might have heard, and I wanted to start with that news, so to say. Ambedkar International Center is unveiling a statue of Dr. Ambedkar in Accokeek, Maryland on October 14th. 14th October. The importance of 14th October need not be told in Nagpur at least. That's the day Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar gave us a Diksha for Buddhism, and that's the day the statue of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Babasaheb Ambedkar as we lovingly call him, is going to be unveiled in USA. It's the first such statue. It is about 14 feet tall. A lot of Ambedkarites who are in the US have worked for this inauguration. I must congratulate them, and we should be happy, we should be proud that the message of Dr. Ambedkar is now reaching all over the US. The topic given to me is the caste in corporate. A lot of my work, I worked with Infosys for about 14 years in senior roles, Infosys, Capgemini, and CSS corporations, and of course in the US about 8 to 10 years of work ex. So I have seen that the caste, in some sense, they kind of just deny the existence of caste in the corporate. When we talk about corporate, we are talking about the private sector. Private sector behaves as if the caste just doesn't exist. They completely, whatever the caste agitations that we are doing in the US, when we want to talk about the caste, they say, oh, caste just doesn't exist. This is some old thing, this is some invention by the US and so on. Caste just doesn't exist. As far as caste in the Indian corporate structures, systems, processes, it just doesn't exist. Or they want to believe. We know that the caste exists in every step, everywhere the caste exists. The first thing that you meet each other, people just want to know the caste, especially the upper caste, because they want to boast about their caste, that they are from the upper caste. They want to show you down that you do not belong to this place, or things like that. They have been able to block the caste discussions, hiring of the caste oppressed people. They of course talk about diversity, but unlike the true diversity, which would mean religion, caste, race, gender, sexual orientation, etc., they have reduced, at least in India, only to the gender diversity. You will not hear about them talking about religion, you will not hear them talking about sexual orientation. All you will hear is that women, there should be the workforce should be diversified by gender. It's a good thing, there is no doubt. But in that women workforce, do we have, let's say, the lower caste, the oppressed caste women in the workforce? The answer is obviously no. In the US context, since I have been kind of active in the US context, when we want to kind of initiate some of the caste discussions during the diversity week and so on, you might have heard about Tanmoji Soundarajan, who is a caste activist in the US. She wanted to talk about caste in Google, and she was prevented talking about caste in Google. And of course, it became a big, similarly, when I was introduced in one of the corporations by a Muslim friend to talk about caste, in. So I made a presentation. We have prepared a presentation on the caste. I made a presentation, and HR kind of okayed the presentation. They said, okay, now we will schedule your talk. But then soon I heard that there is an objection raised by an upper caste woman, Kamat. I don't want to give the first name. The second name being Kamat, upper caste woman. So HR then again asked me to come and make a presentation. This time, prepared a little extra hard, made sure that I have read the Annihilation of Caste once again, made sure that the presentation is all polished and so on. I made the full presentation for about 45 minutes, explaining the caste, explaining the biases, explaining the discrimination, explaining the violence that the caste inflicts on us. The presentation was done, and then I was, of course, told to kind of go away. And then the discussions in the background were very funny, which were kind of narrated to me by my friend. So the objection the lady had was, caste is a taboo subject. That was her first objection. The second objection was the caste divides the society. And the third objection, see, we also have our president is from the scheduled caste community, so we don't have caste. Thankfully, there was an African American woman who, of course, suffered huge discrimination. She was present, and she said, she retorted, she struck down all the 3 points that this lady said. She said, the diversity week, the diversity discussion is about talking about all the taboo subjects, the LGBTQ, and all the kinds of taboos that are there. That is why we have this diversity week. So there is nothing taboo when it comes to diversity week discussions. That's the first. On the caste divides the society, this lady said, the society is already divided. And we must talk about those divisions. We must try to bridge those gaps, why those divisions exist, and what can we do to bridge the gap, to have this divisiveness that is there in the society to kind of go away. On the third point, when she says that our president is in scheduled caste, I'm talking about the Indian previous president, this lady, African American lady, said, you know what? We also had a black president. Does that mean that the racism has gone away? The answer is no. So with these retorts, this lady was shut. I was supposed to talk. My talk was going to get scheduled, but as the luck would have had it, the HR person resigned. This lady actually became, the lady who objected became the diversity head, and my talk never happened. So these are the kind of unfortunate things. So whenever we want to talk about caste, whenever we want to kind of make some amends, when we get access, because a Muslim friend was kind enough to introduce me, I was at least given an invitation. But then this is what it is. In Marathi we say, Nakticha Lagnala 1700 Vigna. So that kind of stuff. Of course, there is a lot of work that is happening in the US. None of the Indian companies have caste mentioned in their discrimination policies or the things not to do. You will not find any Indian company voluntarily having included caste. In the US, however, we have been able to make significant progress. Companies like Apple, Facebook, Dell Computers, IBM, lot of these companies have included caste even without the laws in place. When we work with Kshama Sawant of Seattle City Council member, she with the Indian background, she understands the caste, and we have been working with this Seattle civil rights group for close to 5 years. We had done some, when during the COVID, we did the oxygen concentrators, sending it to India. So that kind of work, we're working very closely with Seattle. So we had certain bonds developed with this Seattle organization, Coalition of Seattle Indian Americans. And with the close proximity to Kshama Sawant, they talked about, let's bring a resolution. A lot of US universities are talking about passing this resolution saying that caste discrimination should be banned on the campuses. So they made an approach to Kshama Sawant, who is a city councillor, saying, let's pass a resolution saying, the caste discrimination is banned. Kshama Sawant, being the councillor, she said, let's not stop at just the declaration. Let's make it a law. And then Ambedkar International Center, various other Ambedkarite organizations have worked very, very closely with Kshama Sawant, including Equality Labs, Ambedkar Association of North America, Ambedkar International Mission, Ambedkar International Center, and this resolution was passed. Why I am bringing the caste, of course, is there are very few people. Our people are now slowly making inroads into the US and other countries. As usual, first the Brahmins make their inroads, being the capital that they have, social, educational, economical capital that they have, they make inroads, they go there ahead. Our people are slowly making inroads. And now when we are finding some of this discrimination and making these laws, they are of course fighting tooth and nail. But these laws in a small city like Seattle, and of course a large state like California, which may pass the SB 403, the California Caste Discrimination Bill, approved by the Senate and the Assembly, to be signed by the governor, can happen in a day or two or all, till up to 14th of October, anytime. These resolutions, these laws in the US are very, very important, especially when it comes to the corporate structures or companies or a private sector. The caste discrimination that happens in India, in the villages, in the rural areas, is very violent. There would be rape, there will be name calling, there will be abuses, there will be physical violence, murders, beatings. In the corporate sector, it doesn't happen like this. In the sector, when you are called for an interview, if you get a referral in a company, I'll come to that in a moment. If you get an interview, the guys will try to kind of be nice. They will try to kind of find out your caste. And the caste is not very well hidden, all said and done, right? It's there in the name, or oh, where are you from, which region. In fact, there are some algorithms in Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, etc. If given your full name and the state that you come from, the algorithm can find out your caste with around 95% accuracy. So, and we know this, right? Meshram, Gajbhiye, Kamde, it's known. And of course, the state people know it because the caste also has the state thing. So all they are interested is in finding the caste. Once they find the caste, they will not hire you. Once by mistake, if they hire you, then if they find out what your caste is, then you will be denied good projects, you will be denied promotions, you will be denied good appraisals, and things of that nature. So it is not like abusive that somebody is going to kind of beat you up and things like that. Indian law, the Indian caste atrocity law, which deals with some of these violent crimes, violent caste-based crimes, is not able to tackle this. The laws that are being passed with the Seattle City Council, with the California laws, these are the laws. In that sense, United States is, or some of these foreign countries are slightly ahead. They take the discrimination of any kind a little more seriously and try to work through. So these laws are actually ahead of India. The Cisco caste discrimination case that happened in 2020 in the US, wherein a person is able to kind of fight that there is a caste discrimination happening in my company, I'm not getting the projects, I'm not getting the promotions, I'm not getting the stock options and whatever, because his boss found out what his caste is. And again, they found out what is your JEE rank. If your JEE rank is lower, then you must have come through the reservation. Reservation has become a new casteism, especially again in the corporate sector. If they find out that your views are pro-reservation, if you have taken the advantage of reservation, that's the kind of giveaway for you, despite you trying to hide whichever way, that you belong to the lower caste. And then once that they find out, then again, promotions are gone, good appraisals are gone, stock options are gone, all of that. The Cisco caste discrimination kind of case cannot unfortunately happen in India. Indian laws are not geared, they are not nuanced to handle some of these subtle discrimination that people face in the corporate sector. Talking about referrals, which I referred earlier on, lot of hiring, over 90% of the hiring in the corporate sector happens through referrals. And through referrals, when it comes to through referrals, the caste networks are so rigid and so well kind of entrenched in the society. A Brahmin typically will only refer a Brahmin. A Vaishya will only refer, or a Baniya will only refer a Baniya. A they will not refer kind of across the caste. And so that's your first barrier. If you do not get a good referral, you don't even get a call. And the discrimination, some of the discriminations in the US, when the guys are frustrated to find out, unable to find out your caste, there are instances wherein a caste of a candidate has been directly asked in the interview. So we have found that people are not getting hired, the caste oppressed people are facing some of these subtle discriminations more prominently in US. And fortunately for us, some of these laws in the US are at least catching up. So referrals is another way of perpetuating this caste hegemony that the upper caste have. Why these laws are very important? Once these laws are passed, the employees they have to kind of go through some of the training wherein they are told not to do certain things. Like asking caste in an interview, that guy will get fired. The laws will be so strict. If you go and complain saying that you were asked, you are cast in an interview, you will be fired. If you are able to prove that, the people will have to go through the training that the things that you should ask or you should not ask. That you cannot ask what his father's profession is. Some of the giveaway reasons, how they find out caste, you will not be able to ask a question like, what is your ranking in the JEE, the joint entrance exam for the IIT entrance? You will not be able to ask some of those questions. And these laws, these policies will hopefully India will be able to kind of import some of these policies back here in India. But with these laws will also, there is a law in the US, equality of opportunity, equal opportunity. So when they publish the reports on their employee strength and things like that, they have to publish the report along the race lines, and once the caste becomes a part of the law, along the caste lines, religion, whether you are discriminating people based on age while hiring, all of these reports, all the US companies kind of give. Once the caste becomes a part of it, some of these reports as to how you are hiring on the caste lines will also be made compulsory. Therefore, it may even amount to what is called an affirmative action in the US. One of the basic principles of affirmative action is, in any sphere of life, the people should be representative of what the normal population percentages are. So if there is a 15% African American, then typically in the workforce, 15% of the African Americans should exist. If they do not exist, then what are the measures those companies? So companies get kind of evaluated, companies get kind of asked, companies have to publish these reports. Once these laws come in, those are the things that will happen in the US. And hopefully, in India, however, we have the reservation law, right? Affirmative action is kind of a little soft way, whereas the reservation law is a very hard law. You are held to a percentage. 15% scheduled caste, 7.5% scheduled tribe, 22% OBC is reservation, and now of course the EWS and whatnot. We need to have these reservations in the private sector as well. That's the only way that people will make their significant inroads. Otherwise, it is left to themselves. It's just not going to happen. If you want to make the policy, if you want to make the recommendations saying that include caste, that simple thing they will not include. They will say, no, we are all merit based. Of course, they want to deny that all the advantages that they have had, that they denied the lower caste people to study for centuries. Therefore, there is a backlog. Therefore, people are not able to make it to the private sector, or they just want to kind of deny all that. So unless reservation policies are in the private sector, then there is the private sector will kind of remain out of power. Some of the latest developments, like when we have last survey, when we talk about those numbers are very stark. Now some of this data will also come on the lines now. What is the land holding of the scheduled caste have? What is the land holding of the upper caste have? And the numbers are going to be extremely staggering. We know this colloquially, we know this informally, but having these numbers now in the open will make a huge difference. The only answer to this is implementing reservation in a private sector. Otherwise, this is not